Yo, what is up, everybody?
What up?
We in here like swimwear.
You know what I'm saying? It's
Rightfully
hot,
so.
but
It's
it's
hot.
hot. But it's hot.
It's
That's why
so
we in. That's why we in the swimwear. Y'all can't see beneath me, but I am in my boxers right
he's in the speedo. That's what's happening. He's in the speedo right now. Don't lie to them.
now. Y'all
It's
don't want to see that.
Arizona, man. It's
Y'all don't want to
Arizona.
see that. That's what's up.
Yeah. Let's get into it, man. What we talking about today?
You know what's interesting is I think across the state, and many people may or may not know that we in a Z, where it's like we said earlier, hot, 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 hot. And but school is starting for many of folk. And so I was just thinking, like, you know, thinking about the first days of school, the first days of like a new job, first day of going to college, just the first days. And, maybe just sharing our experience of first days and those different transitions and things that we maybe did, or, just thinking about things that I did. Um, and wanted to like just talk with you about it, like we normally do when you was coming up, like, hey, how was your first day of school, or what are
Mm,
your concerns and things of that nature. And we should just used to talk about it, so I was like, hey, let's bring it to the podcast, you know what I mean?
perfect. Well, let's do it. Let's roll the intro though before
Oh
we get
yeah,
into
yeah, yeah.
that.
Let's roll the intro, man. Let's do that. Yeah.
Yeah, I had we got to go a quick shout out to Joe Budden for not copywriting us. You know what I'm
Oh
saying?
yeah, yeah.
He,
Thanks,
he,
Joe.
he,
Thanks, man.
he's been letting it ride. So Joe, if you're listening to it, man, we appreciate you, dog. Hey, we
Exactly,
appreciate
man.
you.
Thanks for supporting the
And
brothers.
exactly, yeah, and our audience thanks you too. You know what I mean? We got a good intro out of it. But yeah, let's get into it. Let's talk about it. I think when you were leading us into our introduction, talking about the first days,
Yeah.
also talking about for the adults that listen to this podcast, how does it feel to how the emotions that run through those young adults or those adults in our lives that we gotta let go a little bit. We're letting go, or we're stepping into something new or foreign. So I'm interested to get your take on that as well as we go on in our conversation.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I think as a parent, um, it was interesting because your sister is going into a new school as a freshman, because
Mm-hmm.
just graduated, promoted from middle school.
Whoop,
And it
whoop.
was interesting because there was a parent orientation the other day, and I was standing kind of in the back, just listening to the principal and PTA, site director or whatever. And
Right.
they were like kind of mentioning, like, being trying to reassure the parents that their children were going to be all right at the school. They wouldn't have to worry about bullying, or they said something like,
Mm.
um what was it? They said, if they or at lunchtime are sitting by themselves, I know that you all might be concerned that they're going to be all alone, and they're like, we'll make sure that that doesn't happen. And um
Mm.
and but as I was standing there for myself, I think partly because of the relationship that we have with your sister, I wasn't really concerned about those things. But it
Right.
made me think, though, I can understand why parents would be, though.
Mm. Mm-hmm.
Because some of you out there listening, your child may be, more introverted, maybe not so much extroverted. Maybe has had some, some challenges in finding their group, maybe in middle school, or even elementary school, right? Because you go from elementary school to middle school here in Arizona, or you call it junior high in other places. And so it makes sense, you know what I mean, that I think as a parent, having that trepidation, that what could go wrong, or is my child going to be connected and in there. And it can be weary, because I've dealt with parents through the years,
Mm-hmm.
hearing those concerns also. And I kind of forgot about it until the other day. I think the other thing that kind of stresses parents out, and it'd be great to hear from other parents, in the comments, but is, we went school shopping a couple weeks ago,
Yeah.
trying to find the right gear, the right kicks, the right, uh, just what's your style gonna be,
Hmm.
and all that. And so, funny story, talking about first days, right? Is I don't know if I told you this one. It was
Okay.
I was going to boarding school. So I went to boarding school. I went to boarding school in Vermont, St. Johnsbury Academy. Shout out St. J. Uh, and so it was interesting, man, because my parents had never gone to a boarding school, and
Mm.
there was a dress code, and we had to wear slacks, button down shirt and collar with a tie.
Mm.
You had to wear, decent shoes with it. You couldn't wear sneakers.
They
And so
fancy there. They
yeah,
fancy.
you know what I'm saying? Watch out now. Watch out. Nah. So now mind you, I'm coming from uh, you know, being in Saudi Arabia, where I grew up, and I, my parents didn't know how the school flowed. And so my dad, man, when we came back to the States before I went to school, we had to go school shopping. Um, and I didn't know what to get. I mean, I'd never wore anything like that, coming up in middle school. You know what I mean? So I'm going
Right.
going to high school. I didn't have to wear that when I was going to school in Saudi. And so we went shopping, man, and my dad's like picking out stuff he would wear for me to wear. So I'm wearing, man, my dad got me these um man, they were from like JC Penney's, man. They're like these stretchable type pants with the waistband and a little bit expandable. I mean, my dad was never, Pop J. He wasn't a
Right.
big, but he still wore those kind of like uh I don't know what the material was, man, but they stretched a little bit, and they were workman's pants, and uh, got some, I don't know, JC Penney type style shirts, button down, and some knit. I actually had some knit type ties. Uh,
Mm.
and so it was really awkward. So when I got to school, uh,
You thought you were styling, don't lie. You thought you were styling. You're like, yeah, this is gonna
hey,
get
check
him.
check out this drip, check out this
Right.
drip. What? And then so I go to school the first day, and actually, so I'm in the dorm, and again, I was there a couple of days before, but nobody was dressed up. But
Right.
everybody, the first day of school, we're coming out of the dorms, and I'm downstairs waiting for my homeboys, Norman and Jerry.
Mm.
And Jerry wasn't there at that time, but it was Norman. And they come down, and all the other guys are coming out, and I'm looking at their attire, and I'm like, yo, um, I am not looking quite right.
He said, hopefully they kept the receipt.
He's right.
Hopefully. He's like, did I take out the tax to these? Hold on. Wait a
Right,
minute.
right. Yeah, for real, man. I was like, I looked like a business, like casual businessman, and for my dad's work, space and whatnot. And it was like, I mean, because my dad didn't have to dress up, when we went to
Right.
work and stuff like that. He'd have to wear ties and suits and all that. But it was really awkward, man. So talk about first days, and what do you wear? How do you look? And the unfortunate part is, like you're saying like take the tags, you know what I'm saying? But did I take the tags off, and can I take it back? My parents had bounced back to Saudi,
Mm. That's true.
and in St. J, there ain't really a lot of places you can go shopping.
Mm.
Um, and so I was kind of stuck with mine. I mean, mind you, we bought like
A gang of stuff, didn't you? Yeah.
so
You got it in bulk.
yeah, exactly, right. Because I have to wait till the next year, when my parents
Right.
come back out or whatever. And so talk about feeling a little bit. I mean, nobody made fun of me or anything like that,
Yeah,
but just I didn't feel like I really fit in.
for
You know what I
sure.
mean? And it was already a new school, don't know hardly anybody. And so it was just awkward. And so I think about the young people today, I mean, I'm thinking about the orientations that are going on and whatnot, and just how do you help them feel comfortable? You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
thank God I had some close friends, like I said, Norman, Ken, Mel Delgado. Um, they they embraced me. I mean, they didn't make fun of me. They didn't say anything. They still were like, "Oh man, you cool, man. Let's just go."
Right.
Um, so I think that's the piece of it is really, um, if young people are going into a new space, if parents, you can help them maybe identify people that they might be cool with, having them connect with
Mhm.
one another, maybe go in together, take the time to maybe even go in with them, and identify some people maybe that they know, or a group that they could connect with automatically. So
Mm.
I mean, that'd be some of the things that I would suggest. But first days, man, are tough.
Yeah, they are. I think one story that comes to mind, I mean not really a story, but just an instance. I don't know. You probably do remember this just because I was really anxious about it. But the first day of sixth grade for me, right?
Mm,
I went to a school where I was only there for one year, right? Which was, my fifth grade year, and then promoted, but everybody else was going to this other school, right? Where they got to all be together in community. And then for me, it was like I was going to another whole different school with a whole different other set of people that already had their cliques made up from elementary school all the way through middle school. And I think one thing that you did do was you offered like, "Hey, is it cool if I go in with you?" And then mom was out of town too. She was on like a vacation or whatever. So you kind of
mhm.
used an excuse of like, "Oh, I gotta take a first day of school pic for your mom." But I also think that you can sense the anxiousness and the
Mhm.
nervousness in me.
Yes,
So
sir. Yes, sir.
you walking in with me, even though at first it felt weird to have my parent walk in with me your sixth grade year, because when you're in sixth grade and you're looking at these eighth graders, and you're like, these are grown people. Like they got like little beach buzz on their
Right,
lips,
right,
and
right.
they got a little one of these happening, and they're
Right,
tall,
right.
and you're like, oh, I gotta make sure I don't look like I'm still a baby, but it was still like a sense of comfort to know that you were there and that you were like sending me off, and it was good. It wasn't as awkward as I thought it would be. But even though I feel like when you said that, even walking in with your youth, I feel like some youth will be like, ah, no, say like, can you drop
No,
me off
right,
like
right,
a
right,
mile
right.
away, and then
True.
but for you, you're able to play it kind of cool. Like you fit in, you're able to talk to some of the youth as you're walking in, because that's just your personality. Like, oh, what's up? How you doing? Da da da. Right? Or
Yeah, yeah.
just are you excited for the first day? Or what year are you? And that's just what my dad is just somebody people can like, he's a magnet for the most part. People just want to talk to you. Like you carry yourself
It's true.
certainly in a certain way, but not all parents have that skill per se.
True,
Maybe
true.
they think they do, but sometimes they make it a little bit more awkward. And if you
Right,
are
right, right.
if you are one of those parents, take that self-awareness check, you know what I mean, or have that self-awareness to be like, all right, maybe I'm not like a Jamal, or maybe I'm not that type of person, but what can I do to help my youth? I think one of the things I hear often is give them the how your first day was. If you
Right.
like
Yeah,
feel the
very good.
anxiousness, hearing similar stories of being like, oh, dude, I was so nervous for this and that, and this is how I overcame this scenario, right? Or
Yep.
you can tell them what you wish you had and ask them, is that something that you would want as well? And I think those conversations that we had leading up to the first day of schools, or first days of anything, right? The first days
Right,
of
right.
tryouts, the first day of work, the first day
Yes,
of
yes.
applying for colleges, like these were talks that we were having frequently. So even though it might feel too late because some of them are diving in on like next week
Well, yeah,
or even the week after, it's not too late, because you can
never.
still have those conversations of, okay, how did the first week go? You know what I mean? We talk about first days, but how about the first week? All right,
Yep, yep.
what can we do to make you feel better? What can we do to, and all these things. It might sound annoying, but also for the youth to advocate when you have a chance to talk to your trusted adult or to talk to an adult in your life and they're asking you these things, take advantage of those, and I know for
Mhm.
me, middle school, and for me middle school, I always had my earpods in, or my earphones in, and that was my thing. Just But I wish I would take them out to have conversations with my trusted adults more often. You know what I mean? Because they got some good information. Believe it or not, some of them got some great information they want to give you. But we just got
It's
to take a
true.
moment to unplug and detach our face from our screen a little bit and just be locked in the moment, right? So that's what I would share with
I
some
was gonna.
adults.
I think one of the other things that you were saying that's important. I think this might. I'm hoping this will be the theme throughout our podcast, but even today is, you know, having conversations with, your young person, and that's what you said. You know, have a conversation with them, not lecture them. I think that's
Mm,
we as adults and parents, and even you working with youth as a trusted adult. There's a lot of people that want to lecture at youth. And I always have to catch myself, even with you. When you were coming up in and with your sister, it's always like, okay, all right, Jamal, don't lecture, don't lecture, don't lecture. Ask questions, and then I feel like I'm a pretty good listener, and sometimes don't respond. But I think that's a good thing for adults to remember and think about is it's not about lecturing; it's about allowing the young person to share how they're feeling,
mm,
um, and try not to then put the spotlight back on you
mhm.
all the time. Again, I agree with you 100% though. Sharing their experiences is one time because that's appropriate, I believe. But I think a lot of times when a youth is saying or telling their story, an adult will kind of flip that and be like, "Oh yeah, I went through the exact same thing, and it was like this, that, and the other." Blah, 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 blah.
Right.
And then the youth might be kind of like, "I know. Yes, we've been through this. Yes, we've heard, whatever," and disconnect. So kind of trying to find that balance.
For
And what
sure.
I'm always doing for myself is, okay, am I lecturing? Am I lecturing? Okay, don't lecture, don't lecture.
Mm,
Or ask questions of the young person, or I used to ask questions of you.
yeah.
How'd that make you feel? I mean, what were you thinking when you made that decision? How
Mhm.
did how did that land? You know what I mean?
Right.
But yeah, just talking early, talking often, talking with
Right.
them. So
I,
that's what I heard you saying.
no, that's perfect. That's a perfect summary, and I think I lost my train of thought, but I had it. But I'll move on to something different. Just talking more to the youth component of like, I get some of us are in different situations, right? When we talk about back to school shopping, right? You're not gonna have maybe your parents are trying to afford the newest J's, you know what I mean, or the newest Supreme, whatever the case may be, right? All these hype
Mhm,
beasts,
mhm.
materialistic things that you're gonna grow out of. I'm gonna just tell you right now, those things that you get in middle school you're gonna grow out in high school, right? Or even the things that you get for your first interview, you're probably gonna grow out of those things, your second, third interview, right? Or your next job or whatever the case may be. So
True.
these materialistic things don't mean anything, right? And it might seem like a lot for you as a youth, right? They might be your social clout, it might be, your followers and whatever the case may be, but understanding that we all don't have the same background and your parents are doing the best they can, right? And I think my biggest thing that I want to tell a youth that maybe is thinking like, oh, I need to have the newest J's, I need to have the newest and brightest drip, I would recommend that the things that you do have, wear that with pride, rock it, you know what I mean? Kind of like what you're saying, Dad, where people were just like, that's just what mall wears, right? And
Yep,
you
yep.
can change it over time, and that's okay. If you want to get the Supreme shirt, if you want to get the Supreme underwear, whatever the case may be, right? Like
Right,
that,
right.
those things can come like secondary, right? They come secondary to what you have first. So rock whatever you got, rock it with pride. Know that I got at least I got clothes on, you know what I'm saying, and I'm able to do this, and I'm
It's true.
flossing. Come up with your own style, and you'll be surprised that other people might be like, "Oh, you wearing Fila's? What? I haven't seen those in a minute. Like those are fire." You know what I mean? And things like that. Like things come back around, and you can be a trendsetter. Little if little do you know.
That's what I was gonna say, man. I think that's one thing that I was gonna say is, what's so awesome about young people, um, is especially that what I've been seeing more recently over the years is the creativity and authenticity of young people and their willingness to um try. I mean, like some people are rocking stuff, man, from the thrift store and it's banging. You know what I
Facts.
mean? You know what I mean? Like they know how to put it together. It's unique. It's different. I've seen cats lately, man, with different hairstyles and the you know women and LGBTQ community, like just rocking different styles. And I mean, that's so cool, man. Like, and parents, I would say, you know, I know, we think about the young people, going into the business world and And I get that, and you want them to be a certain way, but I think you also, I would suggest supporting the creativity that you may be seeing in these young people. Um, there's something there that might need to be tapped into on that creativity. Because I remember my mom's was mad cool, and my dad. I know you can't see it now because I got the baldini, but and that's by choice, just so everybody know. um, I remember, man, my mom. I used to have a flat top. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Uh, and in Saudi, and my boy's dad used to cut our hair. And I don't know if I said this in the last podcast, on one of the podcasts or not, but he would put like lightning bolts in our hair or designs. And um, my mom was like, "Oh my God, that is so cool, babe. You look good, baby." And I'm like, "What? Yeah, woo, heck yeah." You know what I mean? But she embraced the creativity. She thought it was different. And really appreciated that. And that helped me to feel secure in myself, and doing something different, because always following the crowd is not the right thing or the best thing
Ooh.
in what
Mhm.
everybody's doing.
Yeah,
And I think we need to appreciate some of the creativity that we see from these young people that are coming up. So
I
I
love
would
that.
say, yeah, I would say embrace it. And like you said too, with the name brand stuff, I get it. I get
Yeah,
it. It's
for sure.
social status, it's clout, it's being a part, but don't get too wrapped up into that.
Right.
Um, because what's in today is out tomorrow, and then it's just parents are doing the best that they can do. So just be you is what I would say.
I love that. I also think one of the things that I was thinking about as you were talking was just how we focus a lot more like on the social status things, but I think one of the things that we should mention for any first days is be adaptable, right? Be open to change. If you're going into middle school, right, from elementary school, things are going to change a little bit differently. You're going to have a little bit more independence. You're going to be a little bit people teachers are going to be a little bit more harder on you because they expect better from you, right, or expect more of you. First day of going to a new or applying for a job, right? What you're leaving what's normal to you, right? What's normal to something that's totally different, and that's okay. We just so your management is gonna look different, right? The way that supervisor manages you back then, before you quit or before you left the job or before you got employed, it's gonna be a different managing style than the new
Yep.
person that's gonna be managing you. So being open and receptive to the new changes, that's what makes great leaders, right? Is that we're open to change, and we have our values, right? We're gonna stick to our values, but when we're talking about change and this kind of aspect, it's change for the better, right? Some of these things are gonna better you, but we just got to be open
Right.
minded. And how do you think parents could help with that with their youth, especially a young person?
I think, so one of the things that I always share with parents, when I get a chance to get in front of them, which is pretty frequently, is there's this is what I share with them, is that parents need to remember that um, their young person, we're trying to prepare their young person for life. And unfortunately, or fortunately, however you want to look at it, when they turn 18, they're an adult in society's eyes, and legally, and you know in our community and society. So we should be training them to be um, the adults that we think they can be,
Hmm.
and prepare them for that. And so what I've seen a lot of parents do is, what would be the word, pamper, shelter, um, not allow them experience certain things
Yeah.
all the way up until they're like 18. And then when they turn 18, they get all this freedom and don't know how to handle it or what to do with it, or don't know how to navigate certain situations because the parents didn't allow them to make mistakes,
Hmm.
or um, you know make make decisions, good or bad. The parents are always telling them what to do and how to do it and when
Hmm.
to do it, and that sets them up for failure, because when they get 18, that's it. I mean, literally, they don't have to listen to you anymore.
Mm,
Technically, they do not. I know you might be thinking, "Oh, shoot, my kid gonna listen to me." Well, you know what? Maybe not. Because maybe they're rushing to get from out under up from under your thumb, if you will. And so
mm,
I would share with parents, when we're talking about just first days, is really um, allowing your youth to fail, and then you're there to pick them up. So when you were
oof.
talking about the getting a little bit more independence,
Mhm.
um, I think one of the things that I've seen a lot of parents do, not all, but a lot in the beginning, is not helping is not the right word, but doing the work for their youth
Mm,
or for their
mhm.
child, right? Instead of, you waking up your child every morning, why don't you teach them how to use an alarm
Mm,
and get up on their own?
mhm.
Because guess what? You ain't going to be there when they start working
Right.
or they get their own place, or you're going to get tired of waking them up. And so, why don't you start training them now how to get up on their own? Why don't you start training them now on how to set their alarm,
Mm,
and turn that off and hit snooze, or whatever it may be.
right.
um, help them to use a calendar,
A
you
planner,
know,
a journal,
on
something.
their phones. Because one of the things I share with young people, I'll pull up my cell phone and I'll be like, hey, this does more than just connect to social media. I mean, there's notes on here you could take, there's calendars, there's you know all types of things that you can do where this could help you be more efficient and effective in life. And
Mm,
so, share it with your young people, even in at middle school, in sixth grade, even fifth
right.
grade for that matter. I mean, if they can navigate TikTok and Insta, and all that, they can definitely handle, like, maybe calendaring and how to
Yeah.
respond to emails, and that's where you all as parents need to be teaching.
Mm,
It's not
mhm.
just on the school.
Right.
You know what I mean? So, and those are things that we looked at and did with you. I
Yeah.
got you an alarm when you were, I think, in third grade, second or
Yeah,
third grade.
little froggy alarm, I remember, from IKEA. Mhm. Target or something.
It was annoying too, because I get mad when you didn't turn it on. He'd be like, "Rabbit, rabbit, rabbit, rabbit." I mean, like, get up.
Facts. And it
Yeah,
was an
yeah,
old school one too. It had the
yeah.
hand and the dial. I had to learn to. What's funny? Going off a tangent. I'm in a classroom for the next 2 weeks with my organization, and some of them don't know how to read tell time. They don't know how to tell time on
With the
the old
hands.
school.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah,
with the
yeah.
hours or the minutes. So that I remember we spent like 15 minutes before class because somebody was like, "What time is it?" And then when they go pull out their phone, I was like, "There's a clock right there. Like you can't read that time." They're like, "No, I don't remember. I don't recall." So we spent 15 minutes, me and my colleague, showing them how to tell time and how each number correlated to the is 5 minutes, right? So they didn't
Mhm.
that was a hard concept for them to grasp, but then some of them were able to tell time, and we would quiz them, like, so what time is it right now? And they'll be like, okay, the big hand is on that time, the little hand. So it's just funny going on
No,
off
it's true.
tangent, but like just now how the day and age has changed, where now you got to teach just as a young person, or maybe just an adult in somebody's life, being able to teach them that skill of how to read a clock or how to respond to an email or
Yeah.
whatever the case may be, right?
Yep, yep, yep. It's never too early. Never too early, man. But no, it's true. Cause even I'm concerned with handwriting.
Oh
You
yeah,
know, I
big
know
time.
my handwriting has gotten like atrocious. It's
Yeah,
bad because I don't really write
for sure.
anymore. I'm always typing. So and then with the youth needing with Chromebooks and iPads, and I mean, they're not going to be writing nearly as much. So things are changing. I mean, your point's well taken, and I think that's where it's not just up to the school to be teaching some of this stuff. It's also
Right.
up to us as the adults in these young people's lives to do so. Um,
Agreed.
but talking about first days, the other thing I want to dip into is, we're talking about social clout, but I think it's also about social connections, right?
Mm.
And I got a story, man. I got a story. I think
Tell
I told
us.
you about this when you were younger. Uh Again, it was first days. So this is before school started when I was going into my into boarding school. And it was uh my peoples that I knew weren't there yet. No, they hadn't
Mhm.
come in yet. Excuse me. And I was like, okay, so who do I hang out with? Right. I mean, I want to kick it. I want to kind of know this little town. And so I ended up some group like, pulled me over and was like, hey, you can kick it with us or whatever. And so there was like free time between like I believe it was after lunch. So like from like around 1 o'clock to 5 o'clock. We had to be back by I think 5:30 for dinner.
Okay.
And so this group was like, "Oh, you can kick it with us," and they seemed kind of cool or whatever. And I was like, "All right, cool. I'll hang out with y'all." So they ended up like going to we ended up going to somebody's house. It was a that lived in the town. So there's
Right.
people that are dorm that live in the dorms, and then there's people that live in the town, and
The locals, right?
yeah, locals. Yeah, and everybody kicks it together, whatever, once in a while,
Mhm.
or a lot of the times, depending upon the friendships you make. And I was trying to connect, you know what I mean? And I was like, okay, I'll hang out with y'all. So the next thing you know, man, we end up one of the locals' houses, and then some other people came. So it was about, I'm gonna say like 8 or 9 people at this
That's a
person's
lot.
house, and start, everybody's just kind of kicking it, talking or whatever a little bit. Then somebody breaks out a J, a joint,
Mhm.
um, and everybody starts sitting in a circle, and they're like, hey, uh we're gonna pass this around, we're gonna hit it, you know what I'm saying? You want to hit it? And I was like, I think I'm all right. So the next thing you know, we're sitting in the circle. Now I'm in the circle. Now this joint's getting passed around, right? And it
Mhm.
comes to me, and they're like, go ahead, hit it, man. Go ahead and hit it. And I'm like, okay. So I end up hitting it, and
Mm.
I don't know, man. I I
How
had never, it was the second time doing it, you know what I mean?
Uh-huh.
Because the first time I did it, I just like, well, was and I believe it was marijuana. Not
Mhm.
100% sure what was all in it. Somebody had told me later that it probably had some it was probably spiked with something else in there. But
Mhm.
I ended up hitting it, man, and boom, I'm like gone. And here I am, first days of boarding school before school literally starts, right? Or
Mm.
technically starts. And now I got to go back to dinner. And this is where the RAs are, residential assistants and whatever. And I got to go to dinner and I got to be cool. But I am like, at this time and moment, like things are moving in slow motion. My freaking heart
Ooh.
is like pounding out of my chest. I am paranoid. I'm like, yo, what's going on? And
Mhm.
I was just so scared, not only, probably from the effects of whatever it was I had hit, but just scared. I just got to school, dude. I can get kicked out. My parents done left already.
Right.
back to Saudi. If they have to turn around and come back and get me, they are not gonna be happy.
Right. Right.
And man, and so the thing was funny too was like they were like laughing at me because I don't know what I was doing or whatever, and they were like moving in slow motion, like.
Uh,
And I was like, then this one girl was like, no, hey, go come. And actually, so it wasn't the first hit that, like, I mean, I felt it the first hit, but then came around again, and I was just like, okay, cool. So I
mhm.
hit it, and I'm hitting it like heavy, you know what I mean?
Right.
Like a
Mhm.
cigarette, you know what I'm saying? So I'm
Mm.
taking it in. And so again, that's when everything started to kind of get a little crazy for me. And then this girl was like, she took me back to the back room, was like, hey, just lay down, just lay down. Here's some water, whatever, because I started getting the cotton mouth and all that stuff.
Right.
And but man, so my point being in sharing that story was it was a little funny now,
Mm.
but
Mhm.
I was trying to find a way to fit in or people to connect with. And so I did something stupid.
Mm.
And so it's one of the things that my parents didn't talk to me about, but I feel I definitely talked to you and your sister about is like just be careful of your choices
Yeah.
and what you're making. And I think my point in sharing this is to say to the parents is talk to your young people about choices,
Mm,
um, and what is acceptable to do and not do to be accepted by a group of people,
right.
because that's where it starts. And the thing that's interesting is I never hung out with those people ever again, nor did I really see. I think some of them dropped out.
Mm,
Um, and so, I could have messed up an opportunity for myself by making that bad choice.
right.
And I've seen a lot of young people do that when they're going into a new setting and they want, especially like when you talk about like the sixth graders, you mentioned earlier the eighth graders that are there, right?
Yeah.
And if you're a sixth grade and you see these eighth graders, you're like, "Ooh, they look cool. Oh,
Mhm,
what do they do back over there in the bathroom? What do they
mhm,
do back over there off campus behind the security shack or whatever?"
mhm,
And you get connected and involved in all that.
right,
Now, and here's the other thing, and I know you've seen this definitely because we've talked about it, is once you start, it is hard to stop.
right.
Meaning, especially if you're doing substances
Mhm,
or you start messing with alcohol, start messing with marijuana, you start messing with pills.
right,
Once you start that stuff, it is addictive. Marijuana also. Um, so you begin to create bad habits right off the bat. And what
right.
you should be trying to create is positive habits,
Or healthy
like,
habits.
or and healthy, right?
Mhm.
Thank you. Yeah. So um I don't know how many people beginning of college.
Ooh,
There
woo-wee.
were there was a lot of he just took you back. It was
Yeah,
I remember you telling me too. Yeah, yeah. I know you got a couple of stories, but
for sure.
I know, when I was at the U of A, there was a lot of cats, man, that were hanging out at the Union,
Mm,
and they found their little crews that they could smoke out with,
right.
and try to party all the time. And I don't remember any of them graduating.
Right, right.
I don't
Yeah,
remember none of them graduating.
even thinking about, like, your first like, just now being a young adult and dabbling with, people that are in corporate settings, right? What's big in corporate America is Adderall. Like, taking
Mhm.
Adderall to stay up and crush numbers and do all your project management stuff, or even,
Cocaine.
cocaine, right?
Mhm.
Being, like, common around adults, and if you are somebody that's entering the workforce at a young age, maybe 18, 22, 23, whatever, in your 20s, and you're like, I'm trying to fit in, but that's not me. That's fine. You don't want to try and find out if that is you. You know what I mean? And one of the things that I've been telling youth lately is that they're in a different reality than what me and you grew up in, Pop. Meaning that a lot of fentanyl is a real thing out there today,
Mhm.
right? So even when parents used to say, "Oh, I don't mind if you try it around me," uh,
Mhm.
but
Mhm.
the thing that we don't know is where's that youth getting that product from? Has it been stepped on already? Meaning, has that been laced already? Is it bad product? And I have a sad story, and I was sharing this with the youth, and I'll do it real quick. Is working closely out in Mojave County. There's a youth that was part of my class, right? Or I think I met him at a booth or something, and we used to talk. He was on the freshman football team, and he was just so excited to play football and to go on and go play varsity in his junior sophomore year, depending on how well he gets and develops. And I was so excited when we're talking about ways that he can accomplish his goal, and we're going on and on.
Yeah.
And 6 months later, 7 months later, I get one of our colleagues lets us know, like, hey, there's been an overdose here in Mojave County. A young person has passed away, and I went into town, that I was going into town that week or something, and she shows me the picture of the young person who passed away, and it was the person that I was talking to at that booth, and we talked about substances, we talked about maybe how to avoid those things, and in my head, what I imagine is that, and I hear the story is this, that he was hanging around with a group from another school. They wanted to kind of play a prank on him, so to speak, to get
Mm.
him higher than somebody would originally if they were just ingesting or inhaling marijuana. So they got it laced with cocaine or something else, and they didn't think about it through that maybe this cocaine could have been laced with fentanyl. So this poor young man who made a decision that he was going to go use with these people, the last thing he saw was maybe these people trying to save his life. You know what I mean? And it's a sad story to tell, but it's heavy and it's hard. it's hard for me to talk about it, even just having like a brief connection with that young person. But it's the reality that we live in. So even if you are curious or trying to experiment, I wouldn't recommend it, man. I wouldn't recommend just trying to try these new things. And our biggest thing, I think, Pop, that you say it too, is just if you want to try it, wait till you're 21. There's no rush into growing up. I feel like as young people, especially on our first days, we want to rush to grow up, and we want to rush to be an eighth grader. We want to rush to be a senior. So we got to do what these things are doing, or we want to rush to be an adult. But man, cherish these moments that you have. Live life sober. You can figure out how much life is much more enjoyable, what things you actually love to enjoy that don't require substances. So hang out, find like-minded individuals that are like that. And one of the things I love that I hear from youth today is like some of them, the pockets of youth that I'm able to hang out with and talk to, they're like, man, I don't. They'll be clowning on people that vape. You know what I mean? They kind of just clown on them. It's like smoking a cigarette, dog. That's kind of nasty, bro. That you're smoking cigarettes, like that's nasty. And they're like, it's a health bar. So like just them jarring back and forth and just trying to tell them that, yo, bro, it's not. It doesn't make you look cool that you're vaping. You know what I mean? So find those like-minded individuals. You don't have to fit into a crowd. If you think this is your crowd and all of a sudden they do something different, doesn't mean to cut them off like all entirely. I have some good friends that are stoners, you know what I'm saying? But they know that that's not me, and that's not something that I am in line with, or that's something that I don't like to use. And I am of age, right, to use and to do those things, but I choose not to do those things because that's just not how I roll. That's not my thing per se. So you can say that you can do the same thing. You can keep them at a distance, at an arm's length, but it's all cool, right? Dap them up in the hallway. Cool. How you doing? And we're not telling you to cut off everybody that is, using or whatever the case may be. You can be cordial. You can still be close, but just know if you get to closer that maybe the temptation is going to be there for you
Stronger.
to use. Yeah. So just keep those things in mind, and parents have those conversations early and often, right? Especially if your youth is going from 5th grade to 6th grade, have that conversation with them, and not a lecture, but a conversation with them, and ask them what they know. What do they know about fentanyl? Would be my first question. Hey, what do you know about fentanyl? Have you heard of this word? Or if you have, what have you heard about it? Right. And then educate them. Or if you don't have any education, there's a great resources. I know out of Tucson, there's LPKNC that you can reach out to. That'll be more than happy to tell you and give you more information. With pamphlets out here in Phoenix, there's Not My Kid, there's Sonoran Prevention Works. There's a lot of resources out here that want to help you out, so you are informed as well. So I think that we got into our wheelhouse of what we really do on our day-to-day.
Right. But I think it's important.
Yeah,
I think it's important.
As well.
I think the first days, I mean, like you were saying, it's just really about, make sure you're just having that conversation, and it's all the time, and not lecturing, like we said. I know we're being repetitive, but really wanted to sink in. And I think something else I want to highlight that you brought up, Z, was, hey, young people, don't be scared to talk with your parents also. And you mentioned it at the beginning of the podcast and I think that's really important because I think youth, I know it's hard sometimes to open up. And here's one thing that I've done, and Z, you know this for a fact, is
we'll see. I don't know.
is I always wanted to make sure Z had another caring adult in his life. I set it up that way because I knew that there would be times where he may not be able to talk to me or want to talk to me. And, that hurt my feelings when I was thinking about that. But that's a reality. I mean, he was a teenager, as a young adult. And that's just the reality. So parents, if you can find and make sure you try to get your child connected to another caring adult. And Z ended up having a few of them, some that I didn't even intend. Coach T, Marvin,
Mr.
Nino,
Miller.
Mr. EB, EB, yep. And I mean, you ended up having a few, right? And I think that's what's important, so that young people, you have somebody to talk with. Because I know that there's a lot of stuff that you guys will be in the first days, not only of school, college, may it be trade school, vocational
military,
school, military, job. You need to talk about things, which kind of goes into a little bit again of our wheelhouse, but mental health, holding things in, especially as guys, because a lot of times those guys don't want to talk. and we hold stuff in, and then it begins to fester, and it turns into something negative. And so then uh and then a lot of times it ends up coming out as anger, right?
Mm.
And lashing out, and it doesn't help your relationships, it doesn't help your schooling, um and it won't help with work. And so you got to talk about these things.
Can I share an interesting stat with you before you continue?
Yeah, go
I
ahead, man.
think
That was
I
great.
think you know
That was
this,
great.
but 49% per the CDC, right? Men make up 49% of the Earth population, right?
Yep.
But per the CDC, us men we make up 80% of the suicide deaths.
Yeah.
So we make up 49% of the world's population, but we make up 80% of majority of the suicide rate right now. So I always ask youth, what does that tell you? Especially if I'm in a class full of men, is like it tells you that we got to do these things that you're talking about, right? We got to do those
We
things
got to talk, and that should probably be another podcast, I think, or
for
maybe we
sure.
touch on just emotions and young men,
Definitely.
being willing to talk about it. But anyway, so the first days, they're important, every one of them, even when going to kindergarten. I mean, I think that's the other piece too, is a lot of times I've seen parents spend a lot of time, right, when their child is going into kindergarten, and it's amazing and it's beautiful. But it seems like as they get older, they forget to have these type of conversation as
Yeah.
passionately and comforting and supporting like they did when they were going to kindergarten.
Yeah,
I think
man.
you should do the same, not necessarily in the same tone, but you know,
Right.
Miha, okay, listen, it's so you can talk a little
Right.
bit more
Mhm.
regular, but I think that same consideration should be taken as if though they were kind of like going to kindergarten.
I
And
agree.
youth take the time to talk about it. So that's all.
Lastly,
Yeah, go for it. I
before
know we're
before
running
we
out of
wrap,
time. Yeah, yeah.
I want to ask you a question that a young person asked me yesterday.
Uh-oh,
It caught
pop
me off.
quiz.
Yeah, it caught me off guard.
Oh,
But
okay.
it was deep. I was like, I didn't expect this to get deep. But what would you have told your younger self that was going through a first day
Oh,
of something?
yeah, yeah. So you have to remember a lot of stuff that I taught you was because it was taught to me. And
Mhm.
so um with my first days, I think with the example of the, making that bad choice in the boarding school to tell my younger self was, or I should have reminded myself that I don't need to do things that I'm uncomfortable with
Mhm.
to fit in. Like I said, I never saw those people again. So I think that's what I would tell my younger self is, and I think that's why I'm sharing, and I feel like you're sharing also is, and could we see people flourish and being themselves and being authentic. The
Man,
people that end up getting in trouble are those that are not being their authentic self, and sometimes they find it hard to come back from having not been them true selves from the get. Because they start bad
mhm,
habits,
for
right?
sure.
But I've seen so many people flourish when they just been themselves. And yeah, maybe the first couple of weeks, maybe you're not as connected, but in the long run, you end up having probably better relationships, not only with your teachers, but with your cohort or your peers, because you find genuine relationships that way. So I would tell my younger self, be yourself and don't sell out.
That's good. I like that one. I like that. Mine was pretty similar to my response to that young person that shared that question with me was pretty much same thing, but I told him none of it matters, right? And one of the things when I say that, it doesn't mean do not do well in school. It doesn't mean don't get good grades, but none of it matters, meaning the opinions of others doesn't matter, right? I think for me growing up and doing high school, I was so wrapped up in my basketball identity that I wanted to only fit in with the basketball players. And some of them were not making the healthiest decisions, right? And some of them would talk down about maybe the theater group, they were weird or whatever the case may be, or the people that were really good on their computers, or the people that like to skateboard, like they would really just clown on those people. But for me, I was really interested in theater, but I never pulled the trigger on it. I never really tried to put my hand in it or my feet in it because I was scared of what other people would have thought of me. Would they? Because I already know what they thought of those people. Like, do they think that of me rather than me just doing what I wanted to do and having fun, or joining FBLA earlier to establish those connections further, even further, right? But
True.
that's what my thing was, is like, I was so scared of what other people would think of me that it stopped me from doing the things that I really wanted to know if I enjoyed or not, right? And I never had that opportunity to see if I enjoyed those things or not. So to any young person listening, or even a young adult right now,
yeah,
their opinions of others don't matter, man. Because then it turns out when you graduate that those people that are jocks and they were talking smack about everybody else, they love the same things that person was loving, especially anime. They were hating on the anime kids, and now all of a sudden I'm seeing them post stuff about, oh, I love the animes, all this Naruto and Demon Slayer. And I'm like, so I was trying to appease your opinion when I could have just been doing this anyway. So you'll find out that more people are weird, just like you. And
right.
allow yourself to be that weird. So,
yeah, love it. I love it. I love it. Yes.
So we're gonna get up out of here, man.
Yeah, we gotta go. We gotta go.
Yeah, we appreciate y'all taking the time to listen. Hopefully this was helpful. If it was, let us know. Let us know if it was helpful or not. You can follow us on everything at the Up to It podcast. But if you want to hit us with a direct line and maybe give us a heartfelt message of maybe a skill that you learned or are practicing from the podcast, we would love to hear those stories. We would love to hear those stories and those testimonies so we can celebrate you. And if you don't mind, we would probably share those with you guys here on the podcast of some of the skills that you have learned and taken away from our podcast. Even the young people, if you're like, oh, I love how Jamal was talking about his instance of using substances and how he bounced back, and maybe that was something that was profound for you, share those stories with us. We want to hear from you all, and we want to support you and celebrate you. So in order to do that, you got to hit us up, because the givens here, we more lovers than haters. We ain't going to throw no haterade at you. We want to show love. So give us an opportunity to show you love and spotlight you by sending us a message at the uptoit.club. That's our website where you can drop us a line and contact us if you need anything from us.
Uptoit.club.
Uptoit.club.
Uptoit.club. Okay.
Cool. When you join it, you know what I'm saying? We're gonna celebrate you like it's a club. It's get
woo,
you know what I'm saying?
Hey, from the window to the wall.
But we're gonna get up out of here, man.
Right,
we hope you have a great rest of your day, evening, morning. Later.
We out.